So trail etiquette is fairly simple when you're out and about. There's a handful of principles that are important to remind, and I'll kind of walk you guys through them. So number one for trail etiquette is being respectful of other people, being mindful of other people, and being aware of your situation. Being aware of your surroundings and being mindful that there's other people using the trail is important. One, because it's going to actually have you paying attention to where you're going, and two, everyone's sharing the same experience with you. You know, the outdoors is a pretty important place. It's a special place for a lot of people. So, you know, being respectful to other people is going to be important in that vein. There are sometimes confusing rules that come to trail etiquette when there's actual movement. So on a trail, you might run into people on bikes, you might run into hikers, you might run into people on horses, pack animals. In some cases, there may be some motorized vehicles. There are sort of yield etiquettes that come into play when you're out hiking. People on bikes are going to yield to people who are hiking and to horses and pack animals, right? Mountain biking is incredibly fast, especially when you're going downhill, and it's the mountain biker's responsibility to abide by that yielding rule because it's going to keep other people safe. People who are hiking are going to yield to pack horses and pack animals, right? Typically those animals are trudging along and they're not going to stop. They can stop, of course, but they're carrying usually a lot of weight, they're carrying people. It's harder to make that animal stop than it is to make you stop. So pay attention on your trail and make space for those folks as well. And of course, be respectful with the animals. Don't spook the animals. You know, don't touch other people's animals unless they want you to. You know, last thing you want is someone to get bucked off if they're on a horse. A big mistake that I see quite constantly and that we deal with as wildlife officers and park rangers is dogs and dogs off leash. Your dog might be nice and your dog might be nice to you and your family, but that doesn't mean that a dog can't change and hurt somebody. I've been bitten working before, and you can talk to plenty of other wildlife officers and park rangers, and I can guarantee you that quite a few of them have been bit by dogs. And other people have been bit by dogs as well. And it's important to remember that not everybody has the same opinion or has the same experience with dogs that you have. Your dog might be nice, but to someone who has been hurt by a dog before and doesn't have a dog, that might be a stressful experience. So keeping your dog on a leash and keeping them close to you is important for other people's sake. And then there's also the wildlife's sake. So dogs are natural predators. While we are not really seeing them out in nature the same way that they were thousands of years ago before we domesticated them, they are still carnivores. They are obligate carnivores. They're going to be eating meat, which also means that they are going to have their chasing instincts. You can think of any sort of video of a dog chasing a squirrel or dog chasing a deer or dog chasing people on a bike. They are going to chase things. So it's important to keep your dog on leash, to keep them away from wildlife, to keep the wildlife safe, because it is a crime to have your dog kill wildlife. But it's also important to keep you and your dog safe from wildlife. Diseases are pretty common amongst wildlife. There are diseases that dogs can spread to wildlife and vice versa. And so you want to keep your animals safe. You want to know where they're going, but you also want to keep them safe from animals that may hurt your pet and may hurt you. Again, a pretty common thing that you'll see every year is someone's out hiking with a dog and they stumble upon a moose and their dog's off leash. The moose's natural predator is a wolf, and so the moose is going to respond negatively to the point where the moose can injure and kill your dog and can injure and kill you. So keeping your dog on leash is going to keep you and your pet safe. It's also going to keep other wildlife safe again. It is a crime to have your dog off leash. If it kills an animal, that's going to be a problem that I would have to address with you. So keeping that in mind, that's going to keep everyone else safe. And while we do love our dogs, it's important that we keep everyone safe. Another important trail etiquette is staying on the trail. You'll notice in a lot of places that there are lots of braided trails. Typically there is one trail that was built for the purpose of you walking on. Those other ones are people walking around because they want to go off trail or because they're trying to cut around people. It's important to stay on this trail. A lot of work goes into it. There's actually quite a bit of engineering that goes into making these trails and keeping them dry. And when people start walking off trail, not only are you impacting that trail in general, but you're also impacting the local plant growth near you, Maybe you're going to be impacting some of the water flow if you're cutting into that trail. But it's also going to have people start leading off those trails, and as people lead off of those trails, it's going to create more disturbance. Vegetation will be trampled, animals will be spooked by people hiking off trail. So stay on that trail. Again, it's built there for a reason. It's built that way for a reason. Now, that doesn't mean if someone is passing you or you're having to yield that you can't step off the trail and wait until those people move. That's an important thing to do, but don't try and make new trails. The trail's there for a reason. Every trail has an impact, and we want to minimize those impacts. So another important piece of trail etiquette is understanding who has the right of way when you're going uphill and downhill. It's important to note that the person going uphill is going to have the right of way when you're hiking. So if you're on a small trail and two people are converging up and down a hill, the top person should wait for the bottom person to go up, and then you should go and go after them. It's a simple thing of etiquette, right? It's quite often ignored, but it's a nice thing to do to people. But also, if you think about the physics of it, we don't want someone who's going up to potentially tumble down because you started walking towards them. You're going the same direction. We don't want them to have to go back. So pay attention to that specific part of trail etiquette. Again, happens quite a bit. A lot of people don't pay attention to that specific rule, but it is still etiquette to let the person going uphill go first, and then you go downhill. Another important tip for trail etiquette that does pertain a little bit more to camping is recognizing that you should be a certain distance off of the trail if you are camping, if you're using the facilities, and to be a certain distance from water. So typically it's about 200 yards or so away from water is where you should be. We don't want people using the facilities next to streams. We don't want to increase the nutrient dump in those waters. We also just don't want to pollute those with our bodily fluids.
Thanks for watching another episode of Wreck Yourself. I'm your host, James Gould. I'm Professor of Tourism Management at the University of Northern Colorado. I hope we've inspired you to explore. And of course, feel free to check out the links below for specific information on recreation resources, our guests, and our partners. Also, be sure to hit like and subscribe. Until we see you next time, be sure to wreck yourself.